The time has come once again to speak as co-creators in Magic Do. She's Michaela Stone.
And he's Daniel Dubois, and we are your journey into the heart of the primordial.
Welcome to season 10, episode 3, to be determined.
Be determined. Did you notice I just said with the journey?
Yeah. Actually, I know I was like I was feeling the vibe. And the vibe
Uh-huh.
was, it's like there's an urgency, but no topic.
Well, urgency is something I think a lot of people are feeling at the moment.
Mm.
And if you look around you in the planet, like pick a location, look at there's a lot of reason for urgency. There's a lot
Yes.
going on, and some of it is natural disaster wise. There's earthquakes all over the place, Venezuela, Japan. There's wildfires. Colorado's absolutely
Mm.
covered in them. I don't know how much Colorado is going to be left at this rate. Utah's got
Yeah.
problems. Like the Southwest is basically on fire. We've got other places that have floods. Like there is insanity going on with Gaia. Mother Nature is like seriously pissed, and it's like she's saying, "Okay, enough. You've had all your chances."
Yeah.
And she's mad now. She's really mad. And
Well,
I don't know what we do to fix that.
she did show up. Was it last episode? Or at least during our
Yep,
conversation? Yeah.
briefly. Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking and I was like, oh, there's a guy looking over. She's peeking.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
All
and she's
right.
probably got a significantly furrowed brow because, humans have been very arrogant for a very long time and
All right.
full of, you know, no, not our problem, not our problem. And now look around you and Mother Nature's saying, guess what's your fucking problem?
Yeah.
Me. And, yeah, that's a
Well, I
thing.
mean, yeah, if you remember the title of last week's episode, fuck all y'all.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I think that was probably coming from Gaia.
Yeah. Like I said, it wasn't
It's
directed
probably
at the
where that title
listeners.
came from.
Yeah. It wasn't directed at the listeners as much it was directed as this is how she feels about certain parts of humanity in general.
Yeah, just the behavior. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, what have we done that's been helpful? How have we nurtured? How have we protected?
Yeah.
En masse, we haven't, and that is now our problem.
All right.
And you know what? People can deny it all they like. It makes absolutely no difference.
Mm. So I pulled the card
Deny,
instead of Mikhail.
deny it if it makes you happy. What have we got?
So
Elder
Elder
Coyote.
Coyote. Yes. Embrace flexibility. So I don't know if this is about the episode because we still don't have like a whatever a theme. We're just there's energy and move forward, but there's no focus. So embrace flexibility. So this might be an interesting episode.
Well, I
They're
pulled a
all
card
interesting, but
just
this might be interesting in a euphemistic way.
And I pulled a card just,
All
and
right.
it came up with this is Crow Wisdom, and it came up with guidance.
Mm.
Guidance from mentors and trusted advisors. Seek wisdom and perspective. So maybe that'll come through in this episode. We will
Right.
find out and probably be the last to know.
All right. Well, while we're waiting, I'm going to share something. So I did a spell last night, as of the recording, not the posting, but three spells that led. Or I did a first spell was a call to okay, we're going to do a spell. Second spell was the prep work for the spell, and the third spell was the actual spell. And the main thrust of the spell was to open a portal to let light, as in light that will enlighten you, as in knowledge and stuff like that, come out. But as I'm doing it, I felt like two or three presences, like very, very, very large. Like the kind, if you've never seen a whale before and you're in the ocean for the first time and maybe you're scuba diving and you see a whale. that kind of
Okay.
presence. I was like doing a spell and I'm like, oh crap, what the hell is this? And I thought, you know what? Screw it. All right. And so a bunch of shadowy spirits, basically who lived spend their time in the shadows, was like, oh, what's this opening up? Why are you opening this up? They were more curious than they were like aggressive or anything like that. It's just that their presence took me off guard because of how large and how present they were. But then it was like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, you're just watching. I don't care. Then you can just do whatever you'd like. But that was interesting because it
Yeah,
was like,
wonder how many listeners have got experiences lately that they can't ignore.
right,
I would love to hear about that and get some feedback on it because that's what I'm getting is there are a lot of experiences that have increased in intensity and impressiveness, if you will, to the point that you cannot ignore it now. And even if you're willfully trying. So I wonder if anyone listening has been experiencing things that fit that category. I know I have. Um, but have they?
hmm, that's actually a very interesting way.
Collective, some collective information would be helpful here, I think.
Yeah. Well, we are getting to that point. I actually thought there's a couple hours down the road, there's a psychic fair going on, and I thought to maybe just go down and see if I'd hear anyone talking about anything. But I don't know if I'm gonna go. We just
Oh, I
have
would
guests
be
that are
there like a
coming in. Is
shot.
that yeah? Well, I mean, we got guests coming in a couple hours, so I don't know if I'll be. Well, they have a lot of their own plans to do. So, well, maybe I might go Sunday. It'll be the last day, but I'll go check it out, see. I mean,
Oh yeah.
because
There's
it's
probably
interesting.
a pendulum there for you.
Yeah. Well, it would be interesting to what's the to start checking these things out to see what people are saying, to see if there's anything going on. Like, I mean, there's a few things where I see some people are posting things more frequently, and that's like, oh, that seems to be related to what I did. So that's interesting.
Mhm.
People are now using this term instead of another one, and we had talked about it on the podcast. I'm not saying we specifically because of the podcast directed it, but some of the magic was a trickle down at some point to somebody
And
because
there's probably others doing similar things,
right.
right?
Well, yes, we're not the only ones casting these spells. It's just
Right.
we're the only ones we know.
Right.
I
Which
know
is why
there's others, but
that feedback would be really good.
yeah,
Yeah, that would be interesting. And also for the listener, like what's happening in your environment now that people are saying, oh, this doesn't happen, this is unusual, this is unprecedented, all those words, never before, record breaking, etc., etc.
right.
Like what have we got going on? Or what are you seeing?
Mm,
Like what's different? Are houses selling? Are they not? Is I don't know. Are things closing? Are things opening? What are you seeing? There's big shifts happening all over the place. It's like the visual that I have is where you've got a whole lot of mirrors and they're all moving and some are
right,
opening viewpoints and some are closing them and they're changing. Nothing is static.
right.
That's the imagery that I get, and it's disorienting as being surrounded by mirrors that are shifting would be.
Yes.
So that is something interesting to consider. Like, what are you experiencing? Because I'm really getting the connection piece. We need to know what's out there, what else is happening for others, sort of on the ground level, if you will.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the stuff that gets reported in the news, but what people are actually experiencing. Because the news is just full of
Well,
shit
yeah,
anyway. There's
yeah.
no point in listening to that. That's
The news is
more
what's allowed
helpful
to
to
go out.
tell
Yeah.
you. It's more helpful to tell you what's not happening than what
Mm,
is. It's
yeah.
yeah.
No,
I think
but
we
I
have
think
to
you
become
think
our own source.
yeah. Well, you've hit on it. The idea that things are changing and look around, what's going on around you. That's the vibe I'm getting for this episode. Anyways, I'm getting
Mhm.
is that you are correct. You are onto something for sure. Not that you need me to tell you you're correct, just that you're onto something. I'm confirming. I'm adding
Uh-huh.
confirmation to your vibe.
Well, I'm really feeling it at the moment a lot. I'm very aware of it, very tapped in, and I'm currently using my pendulum to see
Hmm.
what it gives me, and it is never completely still,
Right.
except right now, it is
No,
completely still. You ever had a pendulum stay completely still?
nope.
Nope. Mine was for like 2 minutes. I was just holding it and not a tremor.
Huh.
So, there's all kinds of things like that that are happening as well. It's just, okay, that's if you find yourself saying, hey, that's weird, or, huh, didn't expect that. Those are the kind of things we're talking about. That's where it's um, coming in hot, really. It's like,
Right. Yes, I'm going to use this particular turn of phrase. You have to remember that as someone who's spiritual or who has a magical practice, you're the canary in the coal mine, or the frog, if you will, in the ecosystem. You're going to be aware of
cheap,
it first.
cheap, cheap, cheap,
Yeah.
cheap.
You're going to know it and you're going to
Uh,
feel it first before everyone else.
the canary is singing, people. You
Yeah.
might want to listen.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Canary's been singing
oh
for a
yeah,
bit now.
yeah. We got some big things to deal with. And again, figure out your practice really soon.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
I wonder if we could do a collective balancing spell because while things have to change, what we've got happening right now is rather large and dramatic.
Yeah.
And if it could be balanced some, that would be more doable for people, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so I had two things. I think I lost one of them. One of them made sense, but so the second one is a reminder of no, because I was ready to jump. I was just waiting for you to finish speaking before I said it. But then when you said that, it went away. Second one being like, okay, so you got to remember, right? Like we've said, right? So we've pretty much come to the end of a Kali Yuga, moving into a new one. But the new Kali Yuga is basically the old one, or some is the same of the same type as the old one, but this time it's on an ascension instead of a descent. It's on an ascent instead of a descent. But we're still in the valley, right? So things are still going to kind of suck, but at least it's going to suck less as time goes on. Now, how much time period that is, I don't know. But part of it's going to depend how much you're going to want to contribute to it, to making the ascension. But know that you're in the first part of it. You're of the first group that notices it
Well, the
or can
thing
make use of
is,
it.
I think the balancing would
Mm.
help because time frames can be vastly different depending on your perspective. And
Right.
I think from the spiritual world perspective, 100 years is a blip. Like it's not important. But to us on the earthly plane, it is rather important. 100 years is significant. So waiting 100 years for balance is too long, like for us now.
Right.
And if you accept that there isn't going to be any, okay, but could there be a little less turbulence then? If we're not getting actual balance, could we have a little less of the uh, storm and a little more of the eye?
Yes. Well, let me expand upon my analogy of the canary in the coal mine and the frog in the ecosystem. You're of the group that are the canary for the good stuff and the frog and ecosystem of the good stuff. So you're going to be picking up on the positive of the ascension. I guess if you allow yourself, I mean, you can always deny it. You have free will and everything like that. But
Oh
you're the first
yeah, I
ones to
mean
see the
that's
ray of hope. That's how I should be putting it. You're the first to see the ray of hope.
and it's one thing to see the ray of hope, and it's another thing to actually get to it
Yes. Well, that's where the
because
work comes in.
there's a lot between here and there.
Yes.
Um, which is my point,
Hmm.
I guess. Yeah, there's just so much going on right now.
Well, it's yeah. The vibe is it's positive, but you got to work for it. You see it, but you got to get yourself to it. You, I don't really like this term very much, but you're going to be out and you're going to be bushwhacking. For those of you familiar with that term, you're going to be cutting trails.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's wrong with the term bushwhacking?
I don't know. Seems, I mean, I've used the term a lot of times. I'm used to it. The literature I read a lot of time has that term in it, but not everyone does. And some people like will hear the word bush and be like all gone off in their own little world. And I should really know better than to think that the listeners are going to be like that at this
Yeah,
point.
well, I grew up in Australia, so
Yeah.
bushwhacking is
Well,
absolutely
that's what I
fine
mean.
as far
Yeah.
as I'm
You're,
concerned. But yeah, and language is interesting at the moment as well. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot there. It's being used, misused, and given the perspective words are spells,
Hmm.
that's important. That comes through as being important as well. So I think caution with the words you use.
Right.
That doesn't mean be careful not to swear or any bullshit like
Right.
that.
That's
But
right.
it means just make sure you're saying what needs to be said in the way you need to say it. I've had some discussions lately with people about swearing, funnily enough, and why do you consider words that are swearing? Why are they bad words? Because they're really not. They're
No,
expressive words. Sometimes, gosh darn it to heck, just doesn't sound the
do it.
same
Yeah.
as God damn fucking hell. Like what there's a little difference in the emphasis there, the energy that's put into it. The one gives you no doubt that there is stuff going on, and the other
Right.
one is like it's milk toast. What, what does that
Right.
even mean?
Well, I'll
So,
offer you this,
how is
right?
there
So
a
go ahead.
bad
Yeah.
word? There's no
Yeah.
bad word.
I can offer you the origins of it as I understand it. So think about it,
What, the
right?
swearing?
Yes, because that's so if you look at it, right? So it's vulgar language. But what does vulgar mean? Vulgar means it's usually someone who's poor and uneducated, but which would have been your common population at the time. So it's common parlance. You don't have the necessary education to speak with better words. Therefore, you are vulgar, and therefore you are, you know, not so good. Actually, this also ties into the word pagan. Pagan just means
Okay.
rural. Pagan
Mm.
practices are rural practices versus going to a temple in a city or whatever you want to call it, where they had the high priests and all that kind of stuff. You're just out there in the thick of the magic and the nature doing the thing. It's like active, like we said, medicine, active ingredient versus the plant that has the active ingredient. So that kind of stuff. And
So
vulgar language is the same thing.
the whole thing is hierarchical,
Yeah.
right? You
Hmm.
are at the top of the tree if you use certain language and not
Hmm.
other language, if you use artificially produced medications and not natural, and if
That's
you
right.
live in a city, not a rural
Right.
area. Humans are so full of shit.
And that's where it all
Like,
comes from.
uh-huh.
It's bad
But I mean,
because we the wealthy, the educated, did not give our stamp of approval on it. That's something someone who one of the poors would say, or quote unquote.
and
You know.
yet, and yet, some of the worst language you're going to hear
Mm,
comes from exactly those people.
yep.
So, worst meaning most vulgar, if you will. So, yeah, I think we've moved past that.
Yeah.
We're not in that stage now. Before the podcast, we were talking about the need to move on from fireworks
Yeah.
and get into drone shows. That it's still spectacular, but you're not, setting fire to things, and people aren't going to
Right.
lose their fingers, their lives. They're not going to set forest fires, etc., with drone shows. So it would make sense. But the human race is nothing if not slow to adapt.
Right.
Given, like, we could adapt, we have the technology to move a lot faster than we are.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a lot of knuckle dragging going on. over certain innovations.
Yes.
And that is unfortunate. And then there are other innovations that don't get vetted properly, that they're not
Mm.
examined because there's money behind them,
Yes.
and those get embraced too quickly. So we
Yeah.
really don't have a very good metric for deciding when and how to move forward. We're using the wrong metric, which typically is money and power. Linked? I think
Yeah.
so.
We're so it's the thing of the more technology we develop, the more we can uplift everyone, but the more people try to hoard the power.
Mhm. Yep. It's like you can create nuclear fission, which can be
Yeah.
used for all kinds of amazing things, and you can blow people up with it.
Yep.
Um, it doesn't have to be used badly, but that's
Nope.
somebody's always going to find the way to do that. And we have to navigate all of that right now.
Yep. Yeah. It that's well, I'll put it that way. That's one of the big things. It's the like just to bring it out of magic for a second and think more economically. When someone says let's raise the minimum wage, well, the argument that will always come is that people will raise their prices. There's no economic theory that requires people to raise their prices. There's no force of not even in the economic sense. There's no market force that says you have to raise the price of everything because a certain group of people have more money. Because it doesn't happen when wealthy people get more money. Prices don't suddenly go
Mhm.
up. It doesn't have to
The,
go up. That's just someone being a dick. Like it doesn't have to go up. There's no force acting once you put more money in this pot that forces everything else to go up in price.
Absolutely. And the US is one of the places that
Mm.
argues the most vehemently for keeping the minimum wage
Yeah.
down and for keeping people in absolute poverty. And interestingly, the people in poverty are often the ones who argue for it.
Yeah.
And they have bought into the illusion
That's the part
that
that confuses me.
it distresses me, I gotta say, because it's like I don't know how to help them not be that stupid.
Mm.
And I don't mean that in a put down kind of way. I just literally mean what I said.
Yeah.
How stupid do you have to be to buy into the idea that keeping yourself poor and the rich people richer benefits in some way? Like there is no trickle down effect. They
No.
spend their money in places where it'll go further and they get taxed less.
Hmm.
You're not getting it. It's not for you. And they'll raise their damn prices anyway because they can.
Hmm.
They
Well, and
don't
that's the
give a
thing, right?
shit
Because
about you.
that's also the counter argument. The prices went up anyways. So without any minimum wage going up, so what's the thing here?
But what we need to figure out really and truly is what is that magic that they're using
Mm.
to convince people of the truth of what is very clearly a lie. I mean,
Yeah.
there's deception there of an epic level. Like,
Hmm.
how are they doing that?
Well, first we have to burst the bubble of a lot of well-meaning people and say that as a species, that we do fall into hierarchical patterns for some things, not for everything. But when we get together as a group, there is a hierarchical pattern that shows up. And I always argue it like this that there's central coordinators, just so that everyone's not off doing their own thing when you're trying to do a group project. So they're points of reference and they're coordinators. And we would call those people leaders. But over time, whereas before being a leader was actually kind of you taking on extra work, we inverted that at some point.
Mm,
Once we started compensating for the role, like really compensating for the role, I don't mean like, oh, okay, you're figuring this out, so I'm going to go till your field for you. No, I mean, you're doing this role, so you don't have to have a field anymore. We'll just pay you, and you don't have to do any of those other things. When we crossed that line, and then the opportunities
mhm.
came in to see how far they could push the system. When we hit that point, that's when leadership became a bad thing, or when that central coordinator became more of a role that to be shunned in the sense of not to be shunned because obviously people want it because you get paid and you don't have to do the other stuff, but in the sense that now it gets turned into something that it's not. And there's words in there somewhere. Basically, you stop being a leader and you start looking out for yourself. You stopped
Yes.
coordinating and started looking out for yourself. Basically, the role lost its original purpose.
Well, you can look at communism that way, right? Communism on paper is perfect. It really is. And I believe, when communism first is implemented, it starts off well, might not last very long at all, but if the intention is good from the beginning, it will start off
Mm,
well. However, very soon, people realize I can take advantage of this. I
right.
can use this for my own gain. And
Yes.
that is not allowed for in communism. It's you're not supposed to do that. We're here for the collective good.
Right.
So everything goes to shit as soon as somebody says, "Mm, no, I'm not buying those rules. I'm going to take advantage of this." And
Right.
that has been a big theme for me this year, I think, is noticing how, I mean, you can't avoid it, looking at the politics in the US, for
Mm,
example, but you can also pick Britain or any number of
you
places
can.
where everything has been going by the rule book until it hasn't. And
Hmm.
as soon as somebody says, I'm not following that rule book anymore, I'm doing it my way, and the subjects are still holding on to the rule book, waving it frantically and saying,
Yes.
but rules, but
Yeah.
laws, you have to do it this way. And the people in power are saying, no, I'm going to do it my way. So get out of my way or I step on you. And that's happening all over the place in a number of ways, not just political, but
Yeah.
it's showing up that you cannot miss it. You cannot miss it.
Well,
What are you going
that,
to do with
yeah,
it?
that kind of sparked an idea
Oh,
that kind
good.
of blurted itself out. Well, because think about it, right? What we're doing is that we're telling people to throw away the rules too, the stories and all that kind of stuff. We're just
Absolutely.
asking for it to be done in a positive. There are people listening. It's unfortunately it's the people who are doing it who are doing harm.
So the rule book,
Yeah.
the intention behind the rule book is
Yeah.
important here,
Yes.
right? Because
Absolutely.
when you're looking at the political stuff, for example,
Hmm.
the rule books are meant to maintain balance.
Hmm.
They're meant to distribute power evenly or more evenly.
Hmm.
It is not a perfect system. It has never been a perfect system. Pick a country, they're not
Yeah.
perfect systems. But the aim is balance. The aim
Right.
is to distribute. Whereas the rule books that we're talking about, particularly, religious rule books and so on, those are used to oppress. So throwing out those rules are, I think, absolutely required. Those rules
Yeah.
are not here for you. Whereas the ones that are currently being discarded en masse by all the political and religious figures, those ones, those were actually meant to keep them in check.
Right. So I'm just going to re-show this card for a
So
second.
look at the origin of look
Right.
at the origin of where it comes from.
So
Elder
for the
Coyote.
readers, I brought back up the Elder Coyote card because the sub captioning of it is embrace flexibility. And I'm bringing it up for a reason because Michaela hit on something. It's not about absolutes. It's not about you shouldn't follow rules. It's not about you should follow rules. It's about things work when they work and things don't work when they work. So you work with it when it works and you don't work with it when it doesn't. And you discard it when it doesn't work. And that requires flexibility. And a lot of people, and sometimes people are afraid of that, of using that kind of flexibility because they want rules. They want some kind of thing they can follow and reference outside of themselves because they don't trust themselves or other people don't trust other people. And I mean, it's not like on the planet we haven't earned that kind of thing, but as a species amongst ourselves, but it's learning
Well,
to doing that balance.
well, being able to trust yourself is
Hmm.
really, really important. And
Yes.
if the listener does no other work than that in their entire lives, do that. That is like the most important thing you can do because if you can't trust yourself, you are lost. Like
Hmm.
your compass is busted because you are your compass.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got that knowledge down, then nothing else matters. Seriously. It's like the most key thing that you can work on. Um, and I just pulled the card of transformation as I was saying that,
Right.
which is funny. It's your chance to grow and evolve. But the thing with rule books too is my first and main question is what's the intention behind these rules? Why were they written? Why are they created? For whom? And,
Hmm.
what's the point? And does the point still matter? Because some rules did have a point. Do
Yes.
they matter now?
That's
And I
massively
would take
important.
it is massively important. And I would take some dietary laws, for example.
Mm.
If you look at Judaism and
Mm.
Islam, they share very, very similar dietary laws. No shock there.
Mm.
And they made absolute sense when they were put into place because the people were desert dwellers where, food would spoil and it
Mhm.
would spoil quickly, and certain food would kill you faster than others. So there's a lot of restriction around the consumption of those kind of foods and the preparation of them and what is humane and what isn't. Like they had very rudimentary rules, if you will,
Mhm.
because it helped not have people die off from food poisoning, right? Like it was necessary then. Is it necessary now? Necessary? No.
Yeah.
People have attributed a different meaning to it, though. Now it's a
Right.
sign of your diligence and your adherence to your religion.
Mhm.
Okay. If you value that, good for you, knock yourself out. But if you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't value that much. So, if you're a person who's still eating fish on Fridays,
Mm.
why? Do you know why you even started? Right? Like there are so many. Here's the other thing that you have to question about rules. Where are you following unexamined rules? Where are you
Right.
just doing it because it's what you do? And
Right.
that's like a lifetime's work, just looking at those things. The origin of the rules. Who created them? Why were they created? The purpose is what? Is it still relevant? Has it ever served you?
Yeah. As someone
Those
who
are the
comes,
rules.
yeah,
The rules
I'll
that
get
don't make it through those checks, those are the
right.
ones that need to go.
I was going to say from someone who's more from a more quote unquote vulgar Catholic tradition. The joke going around is that the Pope probably knew someone who needed to boost their fish sales, so they said, you know what, meat on Friday's out. You got to have fish.
That's no, I could see that. I mean,
Yeah.
purgatory became a thing because the priests needed money,
Yeah.
wanted. Moot point, but purgatory was created so that if poor people couldn't afford to pay the prayers for their
Mm.
departed one's soul to go to heaven, the
Mm.
priests would keep them in purgatory, God's waiting room,
Yeah.
until they could afford to pay for the prayers. Now, if that's not a sinful behavior, I don't know what is, but there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a good example because like rules, it's about learning to take the value of something that you're advised to do and see if it sticks with what you need to do. Like, because we've talked about it, right? Like we can tell you what we know, what we've experienced, how it worked for us, and then it's up to everyone else to take that and see if it works for them. If it doesn't work for them, do something else. Or maybe it works a little bit, or it helps push you into the direction you need to. But we're not saying you have to do A, B, C, or D. We're suggesting A, B, C, or D because it worked for us, or at least it's worked
Hmm.
for someone.
I'm strongly
Yeah.
urging that people question though.
Yeah.
When there's rules, question the values that are passed on to you.
Yeah.
Whose values are they, and do they still work? Because even looking at something like, okay, I'm a behavior analyst. People know that by now, probably.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, behavior analysis was developed in the 50s and 60s. And the guy that developed it was not particularly warm and fuzzy. So, what was he doing? I don't know, a lot of work with pigeons. But the point is that that
Yeah.
science, fundamentally, the basics of it are accurate, right? This happens, then that behavior follows. This is the consequence, so on and so forth. The basics of applied behavior analysis work. The application is where the rules come in that people make rather than
Mm.
nature.
Right.
The basics of the science are natural. They are natural consequences.
Hmm.
If you bang your head on a wall, you will get a pain in your head. This is a natural consequence. Nobody created that rule.
Right.
It exists. But how to apply that science, what to do about it, that's where the man-made rules come in. That's where the people influence happens. And we are not the same species that we were in the 50s and 60s. So a lot of the same approaches no longer apply. Like, don't do it because it's not appropriate for this species of person. We live in a very different world. We're in a data-driven, electronic world where stuff is available in an
Yes.
instant that couldn't even be conceived of in those days.
Right.
So, how do the values of then apply now? And now you can take that argument I just made and you can apply it to parenting,
Mm.
where the way you were raised, what's that got to do with the price of fish? What's that got to do with how you
Yeah.
raise your kids now? These are not the same species. And what our kids are facing now is vastly different from what
Hmm.
we faced as kids. The realities are hugely different. Can you imagine? You're born in like 2010. Your life has been a really shitty roller coaster since then because just when you're getting somewhere in your childhood, COVID hits. And then
Yeah.
you've got, all these different things happening and, your babysitter is iPad,
Yeah.
etc. There's so many things that if you're hanging on to values that have been passed to you because people didn't know differently other than to pass them to you, it's not a good reason. Consider, where are you keeping yourself stuck? Where are you out of sync?
Yeah.
Because you're going to be stopping yourself from an awful lot of magical practice based on incorrect values, values that
Yes.
no longer work. It's important to question.
That leads me down an aside. The dragon behind you,
Mhm.
and how many claws does it have? Or talons, or whatever you want to call it, the fingers.
Four on each
Oh,
hand.
because the number of claws matters. Like five, I think, is for only the emperor can have pictures of dragons with five claws. And then four, I'm saying is you're hanging, you might be hanging above your station. I don't know. I don't remember what four is for. I know three, four, five. I don't think there's dragons with less claws than three out there.
Well, the dragon that you're looking at has a
Mm,
story. It
right,
comes from Bhutan, which
right.
is the land of the thunder dragon,
Okay.
and in its claws, each hand holds a gem, which is part of the fourfold path.
Yeah.
So it's a noble truth.
Mm,
So it's one of the four noble truths. So
mm,
that's the significance of this particular dragon. So it's Bhutanese and painted by a monk.
yeah.
All of that is interesting information.
I was wondering because it kind of tied into what we were talking about because like every dragon I make has four claws actually when I make dragons, but that's like
Hmm.
some have five, but usually four claws. But anyway, yeah, but they have the number of claws matters to who can have the painting and who can't have it or that decoration. And it used to be a rule.
I'll have to look. I have many dragons in the house.
Yeah.
I'll have to investigate.
Yeah. Well, in this day and age, I don't think it matters to anybody, but back in the day, it was
Oh,
a symbol of
I
stuff.
won't
Yeah.
care anyway,
Yeah.
but but I'm curious now. I gotta have a look.
Yeah.
It's
But
many
rules like that,
dragons.
right? Rules like that existed. And that's kind of like where it's like, all right. So if you have a five, so if you were back then, and whenever the last big empire was in China, which I'm trying to think, if you were caught with contraband of a five-clawed dragon, right? That would be
Yeah,
weird.
we attribute meaning to things that haven't. Okay, here's something that just dropped in. We as humans attribute meaning to things that have none, and we ignore the meaning that's in front of us.
Right.
That's actually there's a lot to what I just said
Yeah. Yes.
because we're ignoring the important stuff. Self-trust is one of those things.
Hmm.
Intuition is one of those things. Your connection to the spirit world is one of those things.
Well,
We're
yeah.
ignoring it and paying attention to the internet.
Yeah. And worrying what other people have to say about it or what their rules are. Because I'm still
Right.
seeing that, right? People are still talking about how do you start a witch's practice, and then there's all kinds of rules, and it's like, I like, all right, yeah, okay. And it's funny because it's well-meaning people apparently, or seem to be well-meaning people, but it's just stuck in rules, stuck in listen, you're going to get in the way of your own development because you're worried about the structure.
Yep.
Now,
And
this might not
that's a,
surprise you that this person was very defensive on behalf of Wicca.
doesn't surprise me one iota. In fact, a conversation I had yesterday that you'll be
Right.
hearing soon because it was recorded,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about how one group of the left-hand path kind
Yeah.
of looks at Lilith and
Mm-hmm.
very dark and very, you know, the darker side of Lilith and fury and rage and all kinds of your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the other end of what I will call a spectrum, because I think everything is on one.
Mm-hmm.
The other end is Wicca, where it's all light and fluffy and love and peace. Let's all sing Kumbaya, right? And the other person was more polite about it than I'm being. But
Right.
my point really is not to diss either group, but more the stance that they are holding to try and prove
Mm-hmm.
themselves above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Each are trying to say, no, we have it right, you're wrong. And Lilith, just like us as an earthly version, if you will, we're all like diamonds. We have many facets. There's not
Right.
just one face and that's it. There's not one way to do something and you're done. There's not like one aspect. So Lilith is all of those things. She's light and fluffy, sure,
Right.
if that's how she comes to you, but she's also dark and vengeful if that's how she comes to you. It's not either or, it's not pie.
Yeah.
It's all of it, both,
I
everything.
was going to say, you and I both got slaps before, so
We have both been slapped, yes.
yeah. So,
And that's, if you think of Lilith as the
mm,
dark mother, then yeah, she can be a very loving mother. And what
mm,
do loving mothers do? Every now and then they smack you upside the head
yeah,
because you did something especially stupid or dangerous or whatever. So, you need to take all of the sides, not just pick the one
yeah.
you want.
Well, I'll add a personal one because, yeah, like you said, right? Because we were doing the podcast and we said it on the podcast. I just got slapped upside the head when we were working with Lola. But I've also had experiences where I'm working on something that's fairly complex and draining, and she just hangs out just to make sure everything goes okay. You know, she
Right.
doesn't interfere, but she hangs out. So,
Well, which is what you expect when you see a deity or even another human being in a multi-layered light.
mhm,
We are not just one thing. I mean, I bring this into business discussions too, where we are taught for women to be in the business space,
mm,
you have to make like a man. You got to do this linear thinking of let's niche down and talk to one particular kind of person and, who is your ideal client? And these are some trigger words I'm throwing out here because they trigger me. Um, like who is your ideal client? Well, the one that says, "Hey, I love what you do."
Hmm.
Like I how do you do that? And as a woman, you don't because we're more emotionally based, more in touch with those emotions as well, I think, for the most part. Part of that is how you're raised, right? It's
Hmm.
cultural. But we have a lot of different things to bring into decision making and bring into the path. It's not one thing. And if that works for your energy, if you have more masculine energy, be you male or female
Right.
identifying, if you have more
Hmm.
masculine energy, then maybe that path works for you and that's cool. But it's when it doesn't work for you and you try and make it work, you're following somebody else's rules
Right.
and you didn't examine who was it for, right? Just because they're loud and shiny and
Yes.
insistent doesn't mean it's correct,
Right.
right? So questioning, curious, and really sort of, does that actually work? Is that for me? Just because people say it a lot doesn't make it right.
Right.
We tend to
Right.
think
Yes.
that if you hear a
Yeah.
thing enough times, you tend to think, oh,
Oh
that
yeah.
must be true. So if you hang out with a lot of Wiccans, for
Mm.
example, oh, that's your entrance into witchcraft, right? I,
Mm.
I don't know anybody that's graduated to that, but I know people who have entered there. Um, it sounds so bad, but I'm gonna leave it where it went.
Mm.
Um, then the influence that you have around you tells you that this is the perspective, this is the one way that to look at things. And
Right.
your connection is all very full of daisies and sunshine and crystals and stuff. And why isn't something else possible at the same time for the same person?
Yeah. Well, that's yeah. I've actually been thinking about this lately again. We had discussed it on the podcast probably like a year or so ago about things can be true at the same time because you're looking at them at different levels.
Mhm.
You know, if you want to use the example of the blind man identifying an elephant, one thinks it's a snake, one thinks it's a lion, one thinks it's I can't remember how it all goes, but
Big drunk, etc.
yeah. So everything they're saying is accurate from their perspective, but it's from
Yeah,
their perspective and not the entirety of the elephant. So,
exactly. And so when you're looking at some like a religion,
mm,
and I would include Wicca in that, and if you're following something that has a rule book, do's and don'ts, that's a religion.
mhm,
Like that's it. To me, that's the definition. Um, and if you're following that, then it is limiting you
yeah,
from the get-go. It is limiting you. Maybe you want that limitation. Maybe it feels safe.
yeah. Well, that's why
I
you
don't
can
think it
start
is.
there, but do not end there.
Ideally,
Yeah,
ideally.
yeah. Anything that'll
Same
open
thing.
your mind to there's broader things out there is a good start. However, if you get stuck there because they're explaining to you what that meaning is supposed to be versus letting you figure it out for yourself, because it's not the same for everybody.
And that's where we get oh, our religion's right, yours is
Mm,
wrong. Our version of Lilith is the correct one, yours is wrong. You're doing it wrong, you're following the left-hand path. Um, you're doing it wrong, you're being all
mm,
white witching goody two-shoes.
right.
Uh, we can all be both of those at different times, and sometimes those elements are called for. And you can be a whole heap of different things in between, and that is correct. Like a diamond, there are many
Yeah.
facets, not just one, not just
Hmm.
one face. I've been saying for years to people who, when I'm doing coaching work with them, and they say things like, "Oh, this person did this thing, and that's not like them. I didn't expect that. They shouldn't have done that." It's like, no,
Hmm.
you just didn't see that facet before.
Yeah.
It is
Yes.
like them, or they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. At best, at the most generous, it's that's how they are in that situation, and you just didn't know that until that situation came up.
And they probably didn't either, to be
Yeah.
fair. How
Hmm.
many of us think we would behave in a certain way if we saw a gang beating up a little old lady? How
Right.
many of us think we would step in and do something? And then you,
Yeah.
you come across such a thing happening and you don't step in and do anything because you realize you're going to get your ass handed to you at best.
Yeah.
So then you don't end up doing something. Now
Mm.
there's dissonance between what you thought you would do, what you were convinced you would do, and what you actually did,
Right.
right? And that's because we tend to think we have answers
Right.
where there aren't any.
And then once your illusions are gone, now you can actually look at what you can do. Because I mean,
And
if
and
you
be
use that,
flexible, as you said in the
yeah, and be
beginning,
flexible.
flexibility.
Right.
Because maybe in this situation you would intervene because you felt you could, and in that one you wouldn't.
Right. Because you might be able to, like, if it was one biker beating up one old lady, you might be able to do it. But if it's 20 bikers, you may not. You just might be an extra person getting a beating, and you didn't do nothing to
Right.
help the situation
So,
significantly.
then what is your motivating factor at that
Right.
point? Because survival instincts say don't get involved,
Mm.
and people are going to say bad things about me if I don't, is going to want you to go and get your ass kicked. So
Mm. Yeah.
we trying to have certainty where there is none can lead us into trouble, and it can also limit us from taking action where we perhaps could. So, and rule books are a big part of that,
Yeah.
especially rules that are not written for you. If they're not yours, why are you following them?
You know. So this makes me think of this is a discussion. It's got to be probably 6, 7 years now that I've seen it, and it was about compensating someone for their work. It was a whole discussion, and the person started off by saying, "Well, yeah, of course, the person who works harder should get paid more." And everyone's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He goes, "Well, what if the person is just really talented and can do more work than the person who works hard without working
Mhm.
hard? Then what? Should we reward that person for just being more talented than the person who's working hard, or should we reward someone for the luck of the draw just because they were born with and won the genetic lottery that they could do more work than you could than someone who's working hard?" And I got into a whole thing like that, right? Bringing the audience back and forth on what was, and it came down, well, what do you value to pay, right? Like, do you value the raw output that your employee can give you, or do you value the effort? And morally, should we value the effort over the raw output and all that kind of stuff? And it was interesting. Like, the non-mundane still works here, or the mundane discussions still work here because it's still it's part of the existence of someone because magic is everything, is part of everything.
Mhm.
And all the qualities you need to do magic is part of everything. So even if you have a non-magical discussion, it still fits in a magical discussion.
Yeah. And that's part of breaking the
Mm.
rule books up into little pieces and saying, well, no, I don't have to stop here. I don't have to be limited to that. You don't get to stop me because I can't cross that bridge or, move into that sphere. I can if I can,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like nobody else gets to tell you that. And that's the thing with rule books is somebody else is telling it to you. And the argument that periodically comes up, and seriously, people,
Mm-hmm.
why? Um, but the age-old argument of, well, if you don't believe in God or you don't have a religion, what stops you from doing bad things? All I can say is if that is seriously a question for you, I do not want to hang out with you. I don't want
Yeah.
you near my people.
Mm.
Like I don't want you in my environment because you are a dangerous person.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
don't
always answer
have
that
an
with,
internal
yeah,
moral compass.
yeah. I always answer that with, "You're scaring me now. If that's the only thing
Exactly.
keeping you from doing damage, get out here."
Exactly. I don't want to be around a person
Yeah.
that questions that. Questioning things is good. Needing
Mm.
to question something like that is itself questionable. Like,
Yeah.
really, you need an external source to tell you not to do bad
Yeah.
things to people? Um, I'm worried about you now.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a very rocky uh position to take.
Yeah. And it's a good example of how stuck in the rules are that you couldn't figure out that people like. yes, we have outliers on both extremes of really good people and really, really shitty people. And that behavior tends to confuse everyone else in the middle as to what is normal behavior and what would make sense. Because I was about to say it and I thought I'd put the caveat up, like, people tend to be kind to each other until something changes. Like, all things being equal, people tend to be kind to each other. It's when certain circumstances start to kick in that that kindness starts to go away. But for most people, because we wouldn't be alive now as a species if we didn't have that, we would have killed each other, right? Like wolves, which we always use, like we always, for a long time, we painted as evil. They live in packs and help each other out. So, but yet we think of them as dark and evil a lot of times in our stories. So,
Yeah, it's the misunderstood that tend to be the dark and evil, right?
yeah.
I there was, the fair. What's it called? The 250 anniversary
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Freedom 250 fair, that
yeah.
that thing. Um, there's a recording of a podcaster talking to a kid of all
Mm,
things and talking about we burned witches, but we didn't do it right when we were burning those ladies.
mm,
This is how this guy's talking, and we should have had a Grand Inquisitor or something and made sure we did it properly. And I'm listening to this absolute incoherent drivel and wondering, first of all, why is the education system failing so badly? But
right.
also, how are people like this getting attention? And somehow they fit within the rules. They fit
Yeah.
within these rule books. Now, if that doesn't tell you the rule book's wrong, I don't know what does. I mean, when we were burning these ladies and things, we didn't do it right.
Right.
What?
And the thing
What?
about that is, so that guy was on a podcast. Now imagine if he went to someone's house and had that discussion.
But he's at the
Yeah.
fair too. Like
And I know.
he has this potentially large public platform. Now,
Hmm.
hardly anybody's gone there, sure, but
Right.
still, somebody listened to this guy's absolute inane drivel and said, "Yeah, let's give that a platform."
That's the thing I'm trying to get at is like this is where the group mind starts to have its flaws. Because if someone came into your house, like you went there, like these people went to the fair and they listened to it and they had their kids there, whatever. But if that person had come to their house and said those same things to their kid, people would probably be like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you talking to my kid like this?" You know?
You would hope that people would have
Yeah.
that response. I'm not certain anymore. I
And I
don't
would argue
know.
it's the difference between targeted and just being there to listen. When you're not targeted, you don't feel as you need to scrutinize as much.
Hmm. Yeah. No, because I used to
Yeah.
say with great confidence, I have to
Hmm.
say, that no one on this planet wakes up in the morning and thinks, I'm going to make a bunch of shitty decisions today.
Yeah.
And I felt very confident about that until recently. And now I'm kind of questioning it. And a conversation I had last night sort of came, the other person helped me see that,
Right.
yes, but the villain is never the villain in their own story.
Right.
So that is probably how people are making very shitty decisions,
Yeah.
but they're not seeing it. They have the illusion of themselves being in the right, as it were. They are correct.
Yeah.
And this is why the planet is in a hot mess now. It's because we're all convincing ourselves that we have it exactly right. Where is the questioning?
Yeah. I listen to a lot of stuff about writing characters and stuff like that for novels, and a lot of times the conclusion becomes one of the worst villains you can, worse as in not from their bad, but like from the story perspective of them inside their own world, is the villain who thinks they're right, who thinks they're
Mm,
justified, and who thinks they're doing the right thing. The villain who thinks they're doing the right thing is the scariest villain because
Yes,
they're convinced
because
they're
they're
correct.
unassailable. They're
Yeah.
unassailable. They're sure they're right. But yowza.
Yeah.
I just, as I was talking about it, I had a couple of
Mm.
conversations on this yesterday. One because it came up in the moment, and the other one later was because, hey, I have to unpack this. Like this,
Yeah.
this kind of shook a certainty that I had about people not making shitty decisions, and I'm like, okay, I need to revise it a little. They do, they just convince themselves that they're right to do so. So
Yeah.
it needed a little refining, that thing. But this is the problem with certainty, right? Whenever you think you've got something nailed, when you have to question it, it's unnerving. Kind of shakes your
Mhm.
foundation a little bit, depending on how
Yeah.
central that certainty is. But yeah, I think I think and I hope this is going to make sense when the listener listens to
Mm.
it, because I just got stuff coming up and it's coming out,
Yeah.
and there you go.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is an episode that didn't have a specific guidance, but it had a lot of energy behind it. It wanted to be, but it didn't necessarily have a,
Rule book.
yeah, or even a, well, sorry, no, it did. Flexibility is the actual theme of the episode. Be able to be flexible. But that wasn't evident right away. Even when I pulled the
Mm,
card, it took a few minutes for that to start kicking in. Because we are in this discussion, we are demanding flexibility of people. We're demanding them to be able to look at things and be able to adapt and change when the moment requires it. Even if it
yep.
doesn't match what they did 2 minutes ago, well, you have to move on from what you did 2 minutes ago to do what you have to do now. If 2 minutes ago I told you
Yes.
not to jump in the water because it's dangerous, and I tell you to jump now, well, you got to jump now because now is the opportunity you need to get through the danger. And if you wait too long, the danger comes back.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, there's I had a thread and it disappeared, which was interesting because I had it right up until you did the explanation of what you just said.
Yep.
So maybe I don't need that right now. But I think examining the things that you hold certain,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm definite on
Yes.
this. First question is why? What is the cost to me if I have to consider this again?
Mm.
Because
Yes.
it's uncomfortable to change your mind, right? When you're
Yep.
sure that you've got something nailed, like, yeah, this is a thing, it's really uncomfortable to change your mind about that because you have to reconsider. And we don't like reconsidering as a species. We like to keep going with what we've understood or taken on board because that's the comfortable way. So, what's the cost when you have to reconsider? That might be something to be aware of as well. Not to stop you, but just so you know why it's uncomfortable.
You know, I like the wording, and I like that you brought it up because went away. Nope, trying to catch it. No, it's gone.
Right?
I
That's
was just
three
saying
threads now.
what you brought up was good. That's all I'm saying. And it's important because it does require the flexibility. Yeah, this episode is dodgy in the sense of it's hard to nail down what needs to be said. We have our moments. We've had our moments for sure, but there's some elusiveness into it,
Well, maybe that's part of the flexibility too, is just, what
letting it
what would you
change.
put in the places where the threads disappear for
Mm.
the listener? Like what would you place there?
Well,
What
that's what
did
I
you
was
think we
wondering.
were going to say?
Yeah, because there was a couple of times I was going to say something and I decided to stop. So I'm like, wait a minute, what if I'm like getting in the way of the listener? They need that silence at the end of the sentence to let their brain go on. Hmm.
Could be. That's the thing with this kind of conversation. We don't really know how it's going to land or for whom, but and I know I get strong themes coming through
Mm-hmm.
most weeks, if not all, I don't know. Um, and this week is definitely all about questioning and questioning the cost of questioning. Like,
Yes.
what? There's so many layers to it.
Yeah. The cost of questioning though is a good one. But like, okay, I'm going to repeat this sentence again because I've already said it a few times last week and in the last 6 months easily. If it's not your time, sit back and contemplate that why it's not your time. Don't beat yourself up because maybe it's not your time because you're being in reserve for something else. Your energy is best served somewhere else, and right now the energy needs to go somewhere. Yeah, I guess I kind of want people in their head to not assign a value to where you show up or where your practice leads you in these times. And
Right.
that's the
I mean,
flexibility, right?
we often assign meaning and significance to things that have none.
Right,
Like, is it really significant if you are of the left-hand path or if you're Wicca, for example?
right.
Who's that significant to? The people who are telling you whether you're right or wrong?
Mm,
Okay. But that's reflective of who you're hanging out with.
yes.
Because if you're Wicca and you're looking at the darker side of Lilith, for example, or Hecate, or,
Mm,
pick one, then the people that you hang out with normally would tell you that you're wrong and tut tut tisk tisk, threefold law and all the rest of
mm,
it, you're in trouble. But the left-hand path would say, yo, you woke up. Like, come over
mhm.
here.
Yeah.
So, and vice versa. If somebody on the left-hand path starts getting all light and fluffy, then their own people are going to look at them and say, yeah, you don't fit our book anymore. You don't
Right.
fit our
Mm,
paradigm, our
yeah.
rules. So off you toddle and go over to the other bunch. And it's a question of fitting in at that point. But is
Yes.
that is that what you're going to base your decisions on, is fitting in? Is that where you're putting your certainty? I'm certain so long as I fit in with this group. Hmm.
Right. Man, a lot of stuff's starting to come up now. A lot of ideas are flowing
Forthright.
out. Yeah. Well, there's one that's been sitting in my head for a while, and I didn't think I'd ever really get to discuss it on the podcast, and I don't know if now is even the time. But it matters from the perspective of how you do magic. Like I said, I write a lot of
Okay.
stories to help me work through, whatever new thing I'm learning. So I write stories about it to help me focus it. And I was trying to figure out how healing magic would work, right? Like from a more grounded perspective, because it made me think about medicine, right? You go to medical school, you learn all these definitions, right? And then this illness is this and this illness is that. But if you were doing magic, you wouldn't make those distinctions. You would look at what's happening, what caused it to happen, and how is it branching out, and where can I clip that tree? Where can I cut that tree at closest to its root, right? So that I don't have to worry about the rest of the stuff that comes out later. Because sometimes we get stuck on the outer branches when we should be going for the roots of something. And I would assume in a system of magic where you could do healing, you could just kind of get to the root of the problem rather than having to learn every name, every illness when it's like, okay, most illnesses start with certain effects and then they branch out later. But if I just go down to the closest to the root as I can and nip it there, I don't have to learn 50 million words for the same process, or steps from the process.
I
Something.
think a difference between natural medicine and allopathic medicine, which is what they're doing in the hospitals and so on, is, and it's become more stark over recent, last few decades even,
Mm-hmm.
is that natural medicine, you're looking at the symptoms, yes, but you're looking at also the timing of them, the circumstance of them. It's very behavior analytic, actually,
Right.
because you want to know what came first
Mm-hmm.
and where were you and what was happening and what does it look like now, and you kind of work through a process of sleuthing going on, and then the herbs that you have address the picture of what you've got going on. Whereas when you go into an allopathic medicine doctor, they're going to say, what are your symptoms? Okay, take this. Oh, you've got that symptom too. Here, take that. Oh, now you've got side effects from these things. Take this other thing to take away the side effects.
Mm.
They are literally not looking at anything beyond the metrics they're given.
Right.
So, for example, if you have thyroid problems, then the doctors are going to look at the thyroid panel that they get, which
Right.
is a bunch of tests that are done that simply show how much thyroid hormone, stimulating hormone, and
Right.
what have you is circulating in the blood.
Hmm.
It does not show how much is being used, how much is present in the thyroid. Like it doesn't
Hmm.
show you how it's working, it just
Right.
gives you a number,
Right.
right? So, same thing happens when they look at your cholesterol. There's a number, let's bring the number down. Oh, there's a number here. Let's bring the number down.
Right.
In thyroid, maybe you want to bring the number up if you have hypothyroidism or um, name escapes me, but Hashimoto's,
Right.
right? These conditions, it's a question of moving the numbers around,
Mhm.
and they're not actually looking at what happens to you when we move those numbers and why are they where they are? What
Right.
caused what
Yeah.
caused this thing to take place?
Yes.
That does not typically happen in allopathic medicine anymore. I think they tried for a while and they stopped
Right. Well,
because
that's what I was going to say,
pharmaceutical
right?
companies took over.
Right. Because that's one of the things that made me think about, like, if I was doing a magical practice where I did healing magic, I would, if you detected the excess of a, whatever hormone, and then you'd be like, oh, well, what's causing this? Oh, it's this thing over here. Then you don't worry about this. You just go to the
Right.
thing that's actually the problem, and that
Yes.
prunes the branch, that prunes the tree. All the other branches come off with the one you cut.
Exactly. I do the same
Yeah.
thing when it comes to behavior
Hmm.
analysis, and I do the same thing when it comes to working with clients. It's the same process as you've just described.
Right.
Okay, this is a symptom. Like I just put out something yesterday, I think it was, saying, the thing you think is a problem probably isn't a problem. And
Right.
what I mean by that is, typically somebody will come to me and they'll say, "Oh, I need this thing," and they'll tell me
Hmm.
what they think the solution is. It's like, that's really interesting. What do you think the problem is that you're solving?
Right.
Oh, let's look
Yes.
at the problem. Okay, why do you think you have that problem? And then you start to kind of
Yeah.
sleuth through it and find out, oh, the problem you think you have is not the problem you have. You have misdiagnosed yourself because you're in it. And so the solution that you want isn't going to work, which is
Right.
why I never tell people I'm going to give them the solution they want because I probably won't. They probably don't need it, right? It's fixing a symptom
Right.
that people typically think they need. And this is for the listener in any area of your life. Like if you think, oh, I need to eat less and move more,
Mm.
do you? Why? Like, what else is happening? Maybe there is something else in your life you need to fix that will remove the need
Well,
to
yes.
eat less and move more.
Yes. That I was going to say, right? Because that's kind of the journey I'm on. I'm like, okay, I understand these things because, like, at different parts of my life, I don't eat the way I'm eating now. In fact, I would be turned off completely by even some of the stuff I'm eating right now. I would be like, why the hell would I eat that? That's gross. Like, typically, I'm not big into sweets. But right now, my brain is more like sugar, have sugar, right? But normally,
Right.
my choice would be like, yeah, I'll have something more tangy or something rather than sweet. But that is true. So all my bad eating habits right now are because something else switched me from there. Something made me go the
Right.
other direction at one point. And if I fix that, then the rest of this stuff goes.
Precisely. So the problem is usually not the problem.
Right. Because I actually,
It's it's the
yeah,
symptom of the
right.
problem. And so the solution is not your solution, it's a band-aid for the symptom of the problem that you've actually got.
Yeah.
And you can talk about this in medicine,
Hmm.
in eating habits, in work habits. Pick a thing in human existence. And you can also look at this in magic too.
Yeah.
Like, okay, my practice isn't working, I need a better altar. Okay. Fine, I hear you.
Hmm.
And let's have a look at. why do you think it's your practice isn't good? Like, what are the results you're not getting? Or what are you getting that you think you shouldn't get? Like, what's happening there? And then, well, what are you actually doing and calling a practice? Do you believe what you're doing? Are
Right.
you motivated by what you're
Yes.
doing? Are you motivated to do what you're doing? Or are you in a group that you're following? Like, where there's a lot of sleuthing to do in any of these things if you really want to fix it. Because the only way to fix it is to actually address it at the root, as you were saying. And
Right.
that's whether it's magical or mundane, because it is all part and parcel of our experience here.
Yes. It's funny. It makes me want to offer this up, and I don't know why this ties in. So when I was talking about the spell I did yesterday, this is the first time I think since I've started doing spells that I had anything for even a brief moment resembling fear. Normally I just do the magic, it's fine, it's good. Like I'll think about what I'm doing, like sometimes if I have time to think, and I might be cautious, but I've never actually just started doing a spell and went, oh shit. Like I think I've had one more experience like that, but this was kind of a because I was thinking of the consequences at the time when I did it, because I
Mm.
didn't know what the consequences would be. That was the first time, but it wasn't the same kind of fear. This was just kind of like I'm doing something, I'm vulnerable. What the hell's going on around me? Normally, I don't care about that. I'm like, whatever, I'm doing what I do, and whatever happens, happens. But for that brief second, it was like, oh shit, this is like I'm doing something and I'm bringing attention to myself, and whatever that is, I don't know if I can handle it, I can deal with it, I don't know if it's good or bad. And then I just went, no, okay. But for that brief second, it was like a panic, a fear that I haven't experienced in like a long time. And like I said, I only came close to it once time before, and that's because I didn't understand what the consequence of what I was doing was. But this was like, oh, what the hell did I just? What other thing did I bring along now that I'm doing this? I don't know.
And
It
one
came
should
up to
always be
mention it, so
careful.
I don't know. What's that?
One should always be careful of what the consequences are likely to
Yeah,
be, even though it's hard to be aware
yeah,
all the time, right? Particularly
yeah.
when it comes to magical practice, because sometimes you're looking for something and the repercussions last
Mm,
years,
yeah,
not just instant, not just a week. For example, a year and a half ago, maybe more,
mm,
there was that whole clarity spell
yeah,
thing. For me, I have been dealing with the fallout from that ever since, and it shows no sign of abating.
mm,
Um, it is not spent, it is not done, it is continuing, and that's a consequence that, did we see a time frame for that? No,
no,
I don't think so. Am I aware of it now? Yep. It's a thing. And I got to tell you, I've been playing with the cards the whole time we're talking, and a number of times now I've come up with this one card, so I'm finally going to tell it to you because it
yeah.
keeps coming back. And that's Messenger.
Uh,
Pay attention to signs and signals around you, or you might miss something important.
mm,
And that was demanding to be said because it came up more than half a dozen times with me shuffling all the time. It
mm,
kept coming up. I'm like, okay, fine already. And that's one of
mm,
the things too, when you get comfortable with a particular mode of things, like I love using my pendulum, I love using the cards. It's something I do. I don't plan it, think about it or whatever. I just do it. Um, and they'll talk to you the more you use them, the more that you work with them.
yeah,
And it's fun and fascinating at the same time. Just be careful
yeah,
what you're asking.
yeah. Well, that's a big one, right? Know
Well, it
what
is
you're ready to
because
receive.
again,
Yeah.
with the idea of the problem is not the problem,
Mm,
right? The problem is a symptom of the problem. Well, your question might not be the question.
right.
Your question might be, so follow me here, people. The question you're asking might not be the question you need answered, but it's a question about your question.
Right.
So if you're following this with a magical practice, then be prepared for answers that are about your question, but they don't answer your question.
Yes. I run into
That
that every once
was
in a while.
that's something that I don't know. People may need to listen to that more than once to follow it,
Yeah.
but um, it's kind of important because it's all part of that theme of it's what you think is your issue isn't your issue.
Yeah. I mean, I'll describe it from my perspective. I always receive that kind of as a, this is the answer, but I have no idea how it connects to the question I just asked. But I know this is the answer. And then it's like, okay, let me
Right.
look at my question. How is my
And you know
question not worded? Yeah.
what comes to mind is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with the famous question of what is the answer to life, the
Yeah.
universe, and everything? And the answer is 42,
Yeah.
which actually it is, mathematically speaking, and there's a whole thing about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, it was the question that was the problem. The
Mm-hmm.
answer was the answer.
Yeah.
The question wasn't the right question. That's an example of what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
And we do this all the time. And this is why, when you're in the coaching sphere, for example, or you're a client and you're looking at coaches and thinking, I need help with this. Do you though? That's my first question is,
Yeah.
do you? Is that what you need help with? Because
Yeah.
I am here to tell you that the chances that you need help with the thing you need help with are extremely remote. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's something else. When somebody
Yeah.
comes to a doctor and says, I have depression, give me a pill to fix it. Okay. Unless you have clinical depression, which is a whole hormonal imbalance and, your chemicals are out of whack, unless it's that, if it's like the blues plus, 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 you have
Mm-hmm.
that kind of depression. The problem is you have a shitty life.
Yeah.
So the pill isn't going to fix that. The depression is a symptom of a shitty life.
Yeah.
Now, what can you fix in your shitty life? Do you
Yeah.
need to move somewhere? Do you need to change people you hang out with? Do you need to paint your house? Like, what do you need to fix the shittiness that you are being affected by?
Yeah.
That's the question. That's the problem. It's not the depression. The depression is your symptom.
Yeah. I remember the first time I talked about it on the podcast, but I remember the first time I encountered that concept. And it was, they were talking about this woman. She's been, because they were talking about how there's a rise of depression. This was like probably 20 some years ago. And I'm watching it and I'm like, and they go explain her life, right? She has three kids. She's living with her mother. Her boyfriend is in jail because they're not married. She just got fired. And then she's like got diabetes or something. So she's got to take care of that. And it's like, I don't think there's a problem with like her brain specifically. I think just look at her life. Like, holy crap. I'd be depressed too.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
actually a healthy response.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking.
It's,
Like, this is the appropriate response to the situation.
yes, it's a healthy response. Your depression is telling you this sucks ass. Do
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
Like it is literally telling you, don't stay here. It's like when pain in your body says,
Yeah.
stop, don't do that. Ow.
Mhm.
Like pain is there to prevent you from causing bigger problems. Depression's the same thing. Like it's there to show you, hey, life sucks, do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And but you go to the doctor, the allopathic doctor,
Mm.
and they're going to say, oh, you know what? Here, take this pill. This will fix it for you. Oh, you're not sleeping well either? Here, take this pill
Mm.
and that pill, and then you'll sleep better, and etc., etc. And what you now have is somebody walking around in a drugged up zone
Yeah.
who they don't feel better, they feel more numb. The
Yes.
edge got taken off how they feel about it. But the fact that things are still shitty exists. Nothing happened. And you are now less capable of fixing it because your brain isn't functioning properly. So but as a society, we're going to say, yeah, man, take the pills.
Mm.
Yeah, go to the doctor and get the pills. That'll do it for you.
Yeah. It's
Fixing the wrong thing.
yeah. I mean, and you can ask yourself if that's intentional or unintentional. But
And I would say yes.
yeah.
The answer is yes, because from the pharmaceutical industry, they know exactly what they're doing. Yes, it's intentional. The doctor's perspective is they're told these medicines are good, they help. They don't have time to think about what your life is like. So they're just going to give you, plus so many patients come in and say, I saw this on the TV, give me
Hmm.
the med. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. Okay, here, fine, have it.
Yeah.
Because they don't have time to care. They don't have time to look at what's going on for you. So, caveat emptor, it's up to the individual to sort themselves out before they go looking for the
Yeah.
solution that they think they need, right?
Yeah.
We need more self accountability in so many places. Your religion can't tell you how to behave, and you call that good because that is an external reference point that could change. Your doctor, they're just going to give you what you ask for. They're going to give you what you present with. They're not going to give you the fix to your problem,
Hmm.
that because they don't have time to sleuth it with you.
No, that's the problem.
Yeah,
Like,
but nobody does. It's your responsibility to do your
mm,
own sleuthing or to find the right person to help you with your
right.
sleuthing. But
Yes.
to just sort of stick to this is the solution I want, therefore give it to me. It's like, okay, but you're not going to be happy. You're not going to like it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with magic, right? This is so
Hmm.
important. If you're communing with your deity and you say, I want this, be damn sure that's what you want. Because you're going to get it, even if it's not the right answer, or even if it's not it is the answer, it's not the answer to the question. You didn't want to ask that, right? And now you're left dealing with everything you just unleashed. So,
Yeah.
clarity. We've mentioned it before, but I'm giving you the path to clarity now. You got to
Mm.
find out what's my problem really telling me? Because it's not
Yeah.
what you think it is. It's not on the surface.
No, that's absolutely important. And just, because you'd be surprised how fast you can find your solution when you figure out the problems,
Mhm.
which was something,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. And that idea was something I was actually going to mention because it had been following me all week, the idea of, I had said ascension comes eventually, it's inevitable, but whether it takes 100 lifetimes or 1,000 lifetimes or a million lifetimes, that's the difference. And one of the issues is following rules, right? Because if you're told, oh, well, it should take this many years to do this thing, and then you go next week, you trip on a rock, hit your head, and suddenly you get that aha moment, and that saves you like 10 years of, because you figured out that thing that's supposed to take you 10, but now you have to wait for the 10 years to pass because you never do that in 10 years, you know? So
Right.
getting that kind of
And
help. It's like, but I can move to the
and
next thing now.
and that's actually a good example of stuff where we are kept rule bound in so
Mm,
many places with, oh, this has to take this amount of time.
right.
So, for example, one of my favorite examples when I'm doing human design,
Right.
I'm talking to a manifester, for example. You go to university to do a degree, and after 6 months, it's like, okay, I'm good. I got what I need. That was the information I wanted, and I'm fine now. I don't want to keep going. I quit.
Mhm.
And society will tell you, oh no, you can't quit. Like dropping out like that, that's
Yeah.
terrible. Looks bad on your resume. It's bad here. It's bad, 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 bad. Right? But for the manifester, they don't need somebody else's 4 year program. They
Right.
got the information they required in the time that it took them, which is
Hmm.
probably a fraction of the overall expectation. Why do we have the overall expectation? Because it fits the structure. So when somebody is creating a degree, and these
Hmm.
things are created by humans, right?
Right.
When somebody's putting together the material for a degree, they are told, okay, these are the ways it has to look. You got to have exams and modules and da da da. The
Yeah.
format needs to look like this,
Mm.
and it has to take 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Like you are given all the rules that the information you want people to have has to fit in. So
Hmm.
it doesn't take that long because there's that much information.
Right.
That much information is fitted into that time frame. So you could probably learn what you need in a much shorter space of time, but it doesn't fit the narrative. Colleges need
Yeah.
the money for 4 years. Things need to take this amount of time. Why? Because somebody said so. Not a good
Yes.
reason.
Yeah, it's
But when people place value on that, it's awfully hard to dispute with it. So, how many people do you have who are continuing with degrees? For example, this is
mhm,
just an example. How many people are continuing on a path, shall we say, simply because they started it?
mhm,
So now they have to finish it.
yeah,
I mean, have you never taken a wrong turn? You can
yeah,
turn around, you know. You don't have to keep going on that path. But that wasn't the left I should have taken, you
right.
know. But we get stuck with these rules, and we assume that they're correct, that they mean something. They only mean something as long as you give them meaning.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah,
I got.
yeah. I think the episode's good there.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've said a lot. I think we've said pretty much the same thing in as many formats as we can. If it hasn't gone
As
driven
often
home.
happens.
Yeah,
It lands differently for different people, and sometimes you can hear a thing 11 times, and the 12th time it
yeah.
lands. And there's no rhyme or reason to that. It's just how it goes.
Yes, actually. And for the listeners, this is what I was thinking about when you were asking about that podcast episode. Should you post it or not? It was what I was
Ah,
thinking about after was like okay, so here on this one, right, we've got like 110, 111 episodes now. We've said a lot of things, right, that probably it wouldn't hurt to repeat some because you never know when a new listener comes in, right? So I thought about that after we talked, and I'm like, yeah, like like if that's the person's first time they hear you on a video, well, that advice is new to them that you were giving. So it's like,
fair
you
enough.
may have said it might be old to you, and you might have said it 100 times with clients on podcasts, on other podcasts, but in interviews and stuff like that, and in lectures. But this is this person's first time hearing it, so
Right. Which can also be happening with this one, right? They haven't heard it before. So then they clearly haven't been listening to us. Where have you been?
I mean,
But
these
eh,
last few seasons is not necessarily a good jump on point. I mean, but hey, maybe or it could be.
and depends on where they're jumping on from.
Yep, exactly. That's what was going to be my next thing. Depending where they're coming in from, then it might be perfect for them. But like if you're looking for that person on the bell curve that doesn't really exist, well, they probably should start earlier. But
I doubt that they're still here if they
yeah,
didn't jump on from the right place for them.
yeah.
So yeah, there's
But yeah,
that.
but yeah, no, that was good.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, once again, she's
He's
Michaela
Daniel
Gavin.
Dubois.
Yep. And she's Michaela Gavin Stone. Until next time.
À la prochaine.